When I left Christianity and fundamentalist churches, I realized that churches don't value singlehood or single people as much as married people. Now, I've hit on this recently in another video, how the church doesn't celebrate singlehood as much as they do marriage. And this is because of the culture that exists in fundamentalist churches. You know, Baptist churches and a lot of the older, more traditional, patriarchal churches. And it's something I've noticed my whole life. I'm 31 years old, and I've been in the 3 biggest denominations, at least 7 churches. I have yet to find a church in my neighboring area, and I've been to all 50 states, Canada, and Mexico. I have yet to find a church that has as many single classes or non-marriage classes as single classes. And if you're over 22 but less than 30, you're going to have a very hard time finding any kind of classroom or really any kind of focus for single people. It's either going to be a married class, a college class, a men's class, but I've never found it where people just weren't called singles. They were just called, anything between 22 and 35 years of age. They're always singles or I can't think of the word today, but young women's class. It's always broken up into married people and single people. It's very isolating for people. And I've actually been to 4 churches as a young person, a young adult, teenager, that didn't even have a singles class. The purpose of singles class is to find somebody to marry. And if that's not the main reason of the class, it's always split up men and women. It's never anything not focused on singlehood. And some people might laugh and think, it's it's very unusual, but it's very true. I have not seen a single man over the age of 30 in a leadership position. If he was not married, he didn't get squat. If a woman was not married, the only things she could do was be a member, a volunteer, or work in the nursery. That was it. Because single or divorced women did not have any social prowess. They were pariahs. Now, each church may look at the pariah situation as extremely uncomfortable or just a little awkward. But they never celebrate singlehood like they do marriage. They're not even close to celebrating equally. I would say 90% of all classes and events is centered around children or marriage. If you don't have kids or you're not married, you are hard pressed to find a class that doesn't say college or graduate on it. And it's just the culture of religion. They worship the cult of marriage, relationships, and family. Which is ironic, since the New Testament was written for people who were told not to get married or have kids because it was a doomsday cult. They thought it was going to end before AD 100. So churches seldomly follow the rules set in the New Testament about being married is fine, but being single is better. I think the Apostle Paul actually put something in the Bible that says something like, unless you have to get married, it's better to be single. But that's not how the church looks at singlehood. They look at it as though people look at leprosy, something to cover up, get rid of, or get over. I mean, you go on YouTube, go to church. Whenever they talk about singlehood, they always say it's a period of time. They never say it's a lifestyle, a choice. It's always something you deal with before you head toward marriage. It's not something that's seen as a lifestyle, long-term opportunity or existence. It's one of the most awkward times once you make it through high school, but before you get married. It's kind of like a bridge. On the left side before you cross is being a teenager, and on the right side going over the bridge is marriage and having a family. Singlehood is seen as a bridge from childhood to adulthood. It's not seen as a long-term goal or something to be celebrated. It's something that makes people miserable. Imagine growing up in that kind of environment. And what about people who don't want to be married? Maybe they're heterosexual, maybe they're not, maybe they don't even want relationships. Maybe they're in the group of people that don't want romance or relationships at all. I think that group is called aromantic. Some people want a relationship without the possibility of having kids because they're not interested, or they just don't care about the intimacy part, which is perfectly valid. The church doesn't see it that way, though. And that's just the way fundamentalist Christianity works. If you're not getting married and having kids, you don't have a purpose in the church unless it's to volunteer. But you notice how singles volunteer, but married people teach? It's a very toxic kind of dynamic, which is why a lot of people feel the push, the nudge, and the pressure to get married in order to even have the possibility of having a leadership position. I went to 7 churches and I visited 12 other churches. Not one of them had anyone in junior or senior leadership positions that was not married. No teacher, no music minister, no music leader, no pastors, no interim pastors, elders, deacons. They were all married. Because you're nothing if you're not married in church. And yeah, there are churches out there, especially more progressive, non-denominational churches, that really do celebrate and hold up singlehood as a valid choice. But it is not something that's worshipped or held up as an amazing choice for your life in the fundamentalist, extremely traditional Christian churches. It just doesn't happen that way. How does that make singles feel when they feel like they're second class? Well, it can cause depression, anxiety. It can actually push people to date and get married when they just don't want to, or they're shamed for waiting. I actually did some research into what's the average age people feel the most pressure to marry in fundamentalist churches. 19 to 24. They're not even, yeah, they're adults, but they're babies. The brain doesn't even finish developing until about 25 to 29, depending on a lot of factors. Getting married from 19 to 22 is extremely iffy. The odds of you making it are so low. People change who they are by the time they're 30. If you find someone attractive at 21, I would be surprised if they're still married after 32. Because the brain and you just change so much. It's not wise to get married until you're almost 30. And I'm not telling people what to do. I have taken anatomy, kinesiology, physiology. I've taken classes for therapy, exams and licensure. And I've done a lot of research into just how the body matures. Your body isn't even at its prime until your late 20s, especially if you're an athlete or you take very good care of yourself. So getting married very young, the pressure is there because people want to be taken seriously and have leadership potential. You don't have potential if you're single. Plus, the church is going to assume you have no responsibilities and that you belong to the church, that they own your time. Single people really do get the short end of the stick in religion. Their time, their talents, their schedule is not as important as married people's schedule. And that's something I've had to deal with for over 10 years. Luckily, I'm an atheist now, so I don't give a crap what religion thinks, and I don't care what fundamentalists say. They can take their opinions and put it in a certain place, because I don't care. Any group or institution that is so patriarchal they don't value or even consistently value equally marriage and singlehood, they worship it. Even though some denominations, especially Catholicism, worships the Virgin Mary. But she's only worshipped because she had a baby, not because she's a woman. And it's always about purity, marriage, and having kids. That's what fundamentalism is about. They call it the quiverful movement. The Duggars were really into it. And if you're not having kids, you're not getting out there, you're not enjoying your singlehood without even thinking it's going to end or that you even want it to end. Nobody talks about that. You're weird if you never get married, or if you wait until your 40s or 50s to get married. You're a pariah. They wonder if you're gay because you're not getting married. That is the level of shame associated with singlehood. And fundamentalist Christianity has missed the mark in so many ways. Not only do they make you ashamed for having intimacy before marriage, they make you uncomfortable if you're not, or if you have no plans, or you're putting yourself first. Religion is all about service, and the fewer responsibilities you have, the more they're going to bug you to volunteer. And that's why I love atheism. It doesn't matter what my status is. It's nobody's business. I don't even consider myself single because I don't want to be anything else. I just don't have a family, but I've never considered myself single. And that's fine. If people want to get married, stay single, or try both out, that's perfectly fine. But be careful in institutions that are extremely patriarchal and worship marriage, because the Bible actually thinks more highly of singlehood than it does of marriage, at least in the New Testament.